So, welcome back and Happy New Year to everybody. My name is Rebecca, this is Miss Finance, and on this channel we go through all things accounting and finance related. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future tutorials. So today we're going to discuss which path to go down in accountancy. So we've got industry and practice. So I'm going to go through a few of the benefits to each of them to hopefully help you decide which path you want to go down in your career. So just from a personal standpoint, I worked in practice and I undertook my AAT and ACE studies in practice within different firms. So I didn't just stay within one firm to do that. And then I moved on into industry. So I've worked in 2 different firms in practice and 3 different firms in industry. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of perspective for each of those. Within practice, the benefit there is that you've got a tiered structure from day one. If you're brand new to accountancy and finance, you might be going in at an entry-level position, so the likes of a trainee business advisor or finance assistant role, where you're probably undertaking AAT. But what you'll find is that everything that you do is then reviewed by a senior, and then everything they do is reviewed by a senior, and so on. So you're a trainee at this level here, so you almost have this triangle structure, and your manager will review your work, or the manager on a job will review your work, and then the partner of that job will review the work overall. And what tends to happen in practice is you get feedback on every single job that you've undertaken, specifically if you're currently on a training agreement of some kind. So you'll be given a score on how well you undertook the jobs, things on your performance overall, your attitude, whether you were willing to get involved, whether you asked a lot of questions, etc. And that will all contribute towards your workload that you require for AAT or ACCA or ACA and even CIMA. Now, when you work in industry as an entry-level role, you might be doing something a little bit more admin related. So you might be, say, possibly scanning invoices onto a system. It might be more of a data analyst type role where you're inputting that information onto a system, or even on the sales side, so you might be sending out invoices via email or via post to clients. But your work on the whole should be reviewed by a manager, but there doesn't tend to be that next step in industry, whereas you do have this triangle effect in practice. Within practice, you tend to have a very clear career path. So, for instance, if you're undertaking your AAT, then you know at the end of those 3 years that you're going to be promoted to, say, a senior auditor or senior accountant, for instance. Once you've completed the next set of exams or the next qualification, like the ACCA or ACA, then you're going to become, say, a manager in that specific role. So it might be audit manager or accounts manager, whereas in industry that's not necessarily the case, and there isn't always that structured career path for you. So you might, say, undertake your AAT for 3 years and then expect to be promoted, but that promotion doesn't actually come unless that was pre-agreed or it's something that you've spoken to with your manager. So what I'd say to anybody working in industry is to just make sure, if you are career minded and you want to be promoted and go through the ranks, that you have those conversations with your manager early on, and you continuously have those conversations when undertaking your reviews, whether they be annually, 6 monthly or quarterly, just to make sure that you're both on the same page. Now, another difference is that in practice, most of the time you're going to be working on a client for, say, a week at a time or 2 weeks at a time, and then you move on. Or in some cases, if you're undertaking an audit, that might be for quite a lot longer. Could even be a 6-month audit. 6 months. Ain't nobody got time for that! Which I know is a slog, but they do exist. Whereas in industry, you tend to have this monthly cycle. So because you're constantly reporting on monthly management accounts, and then in some cases quarterly management accounts, and you're also reporting on budgeting for the next year, budgeting for the next 5 years, etc. There tends to be this monthly cycle. So most of the time, for the first 2 weeks of any given month in industry, you're reporting on last month's figures. So you're putting through all your prepayments, accruals, etc, etc. And then for the next 2 weeks of that given month, you're preparing for month end again. So it's constantly moving, it's not stopping. And then obviously you've got your year end, you've got your audit, and then your budgets again. So it's just continuously moving around.
Stop it. Get some help.
In practice, they tend to have a yearly calendar already mapped out. So the managers in, say, the audit department will have 5 individual members of staff booked onto their job for 2 weeks at a time, and then you might be booked onto another job that you've not worked on before the week after that. So I'd say with both, there's always this moving cycle. You might think that if you go into an industry role that you're pigeonholed and that's the only thing you're then going to be doing, like the likes of internal audit or say credit control, etc. And whereas if you go into practice, you might think, well, you get a lot of variety and exposure to different things. However, I'm here to tell you that in both industry and practice, you can have that in a lot of cases. In practice, say if you work in the accounts department and you're a junior, you might be seconded out during the busy months of audit to the audit department, or you might be seconded out to the forensics team for 3 or 4 months of the year, or the medical department for 2 months of the year. Whereas when you work in industry, depending on the company that you work for, there might be the opportunities to go ahead and be seconded out to, say, marketing, or be seconded out to the management accounts team or the finance accounts team, depending if you've got a split of commercial and finance within that company. But it just depends again on the company that you're working for. So I hope you found this video useful. Do consider subscribing as always, and I shall see you on the next video.